Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Astro Consciousness channel. I'm Millie, and I am here to give you your forecast for the week of October 21st to the 27th. In this channel, we talk about the astrological energy of the week ahead and how you can integrate it into your personal and spiritual growth. As always, before I begin, let's recap where we're coming from in order to truly understand where we are headed. We are coming from a week in which we had a very powerful full moon in the sign of Aries that took place on October 17th. We will remain under the influence of that powerful fire Aries energy really through the end of October. It was really interesting to have conversations with friends, colleagues, with clients about the level of honesty that that full moon brought to each and every one of us. That level of honesty manifested in realizing things within ourselves, having difficult conversations, especially in relationships with another. And this really leading to a breakthrough, either leading to a breakthrough of I am capable of having those types of conversations and I no longer have to be afraid. When I have those types of conversations, I reclaim a part of myself where I give myself permission to be an advocate for myself, which is incredibly important. I think being an advocate for the self, right, is something that I personally haven't talked about when it comes to Aries energy. We have Aquarius energy, which is an advocate for the collective or for a group. But when it comes to Aries energy, and it's an integrated Aries energy, as opposed to simply reacting and lashing out, your sense of assertiveness comes from being your own advocate, essentially standing up for yourself or for the part of you that doesn't feel fully seen, fully received, or the part of you that senses that something is off. That level of honesty, that level of transparency with yourself and others is incredibly liberating. I genuinely believe that these types of conversations with people in our lives, especially if the relationship has been one of that has been in our lives for a long time, is actually good for the relationship, whether the relationship remains or not. There is an energy between two people that is perhaps for the first time in the entirety of the relationship, or one of the few times in the entirety of the relationship, where there is a level of honesty and transparency that both people understand where they are standing. There's something incredibly liberating about that because no one is wondering where the other person stands. Where do I stand? I don't want to self-abandon, but when I don't have this conversation, I self-abandon. It has been a lot of back and forth with the self. And so if you're someone who tends to have difficulty having difficult conversations, perhaps you felt like, oh, there's a discomfort in saying what I said, and I'm still glad that I said it. And then the point right there, the lesson is, but this is who I become in the process. This is how I get to know a deeper part of myself in the process. Now, one of the things that I've been thinking about throughout the week about, just deeper lessons about this very powerful full moon in Aries is that the point of us having these conversations, the point of us expressing very honestly where we stand in something isn't so that we then step into a space of, well, I'm better than them, or they're better than me, or we have to be at odds, or we have to be enemies, right? Which is a very Aries term, the enemy. That's not the point. Because when we look at the counterpart, right, to Aries energy, it's Libra. And Libra in the highest expression is two things can be true at once. Two points of view can be true at once, right? And this isn't about right or wrong. It's just two things can be true at once because the fact of the matter is that we each look at life through the lens of our own experiences and our own level of consciousness, right? So when I say level of consciousness, again, it's not about going into a space of hierarchy, that there are some that are higher than others or lower than others. I think we use those terms because when we start speaking soul, right, the human mind can be limited in the capacity that the words have to capture the energy of soul. I hope you were able to follow me there, because here we are being invited into a much more refined expression of ourselves, of our voice, of our life, of our relationships, because of where we are headed over the next 2.5 years, right? And I've touched on that on a few videos. Last Thursday, October 17th, I actually did my first YouTube live. Some of you were there. Thank you so much for joining me. Some of you caught the replay. I really invite you, if you haven't watched that, that you go back and watch the replay. I think the video is listed under live. I don't know how to change it to be listed with the other videos. I will go back and look at that. Either way, I invite you to watch that, the replay of that live, because I talk a lot about 2025, and so much of this full moon in Aries, as I've mentioned before, their processes that we will move through with the Mars retrograde in Cancer from December 2024 to February 2025, which will then lead us into the eclipse season of March and April of 2025. This is all one big story that is playing, that is unfolding. And we are at the brink of a massive reset. So if we are at the brink of a massive energetic reset, and I say that because the nodes will hit 0 degrees Aries and 0 degrees Libra in January of 2025, why wouldn't Spirit, Source, the universe bring us face to face with some of the things that we have avoided confronting for many, many years? It is a gift, it is a favor, and it is, in fact, everything working out for us at this moment in time. I really invite you to ask yourself, what is trying to, first of always, what is this trying to teach me? What is life trying to show me? How is life trying to show me that this can be different and even better than what it is now? I genuinely believe that. Maybe it's, my Sagittarius, my Venus in Sagittarius placement that is optimistic always and always. But as we shed what life is inviting us to shed right now, and for some, it may feel like life is forcing us to shed right now, please understand that this is happening for you. Life is inviting us to a reset. Life is inviting us to a do-over. But life and the universe loves us so much and believes in our light so much that the more that we get rid of or let go of or release everything in our lives that dampens that light, the more we will be able to shine it. The more we will be able to connect with the people in our lives that get us. The more we will be able to align with opportunities and places where we truly feel like we belong. This is something that we have been working through for months, and it has been, honestly, since July, layer after layer after layer coming off. But understand the level of truth and the level of raw honesty that's there, that you're left with, right? Which may sound like, wow, that's really who they are. Or, wow, this is actually how I feel. Wow, my body feels free after I said the hard thing. Wow, I actually did it. I took the first step towards that scary thing, right? I really invite you to think about that. Let it land. Let things land. and trust that it is all unfolding for you in your favor, always in all the ways. With that said, let's get started. Monday, October 21st, I love the way that the week begins. We have Venus in Sagittarius creating a beautiful, beautiful trine to the North Node in Aries at 5 degrees, respectively. So Venus in Sagittarius wants to just be like, okay, guys, I am so over all of this heavy stuff. Can we please just take a break? The holidays are around the corner. I want to pick my Halloween costume. I want to lighten things up a bit. I think Venus in Sagittarius is going to try her best, right? To lighten the mood, lighten things up, and help us imagine the best case scenario, help us look at an outlook of a future that looks a lot brighter than anything we might be experiencing now. Venus in Sagittarius is the invitation to have a relationship with a grander vision, right? With grander dreams. So if those are things that feel honest to you, I invite you to really lean into that through things like journaling, visualizing, really sitting in meditation with the energy of something that you want to manifest in the long run. If that's not where you are right now, I really invite you to lean into the things that feel fun to you, that bring you joy. Venus in Sagittarius reminds us that when we have a relationship to the world around us, the world is full of wonder. The world is full of lessons for us to really gain about whatever we may be experiencing. So the trine to the North Node in Aries, to me, feels this growth has been worth it, right? This, whatever tension I have been experiencing, it has made me more courageous. It has made me stronger. It has made me wiser. It has taught me about myself. All of those terms, by the way, are a mix of Aries and Sagittarian terms. So pay attention to those key words right there. On a more practical interpretation of this energy, which is pretty active the entire week. This is great energy for networking, for social events, being open to new communities. If you're trying to spread, the word about your work, making sure that it's something that is aligned with you, especially because the North Node in Aries is involved. We're talking about a soul-led decision. Does this feel aligned with me? Do I want to reach out, right? So considering that this is fire energy, there's a lot of creativity there. There's a lot of passion. There's a lot of, energy behind the things that we may want to accomplish in the week ahead. So don't be afraid to make the first move, whether this is in a romantic relationship, right? Maybe you send the message, you make the phone call, you send the email, the DM, or don't be afraid to make the first move when it comes to your desire to work with someone or have a conversation about collaborating with someone, or having a conversation around a shift in careers, or Venus and Sagittarius if you're thinking about going back to school. This energy calls for action. The North Node in Aries is activated, but if you didn't want to take action yet, this energy invites you to get very excited about it. Write things down. Write a list of, if I were to do this, right? When I'm ready to move forward with this, what do I want it to look like, right? Okay, Tuesday, October 22nd, we have Mercury in Scorpio, trine Saturn retrograde in Pisces. Okay, so let's say that with that Venus in Sagittarius trine North Node in Aries, you reach out to someone, and this is just an example, right? Take the themes of the example and place them in your own life. You decide to reach out to someone you have been thinking about working with, collaborating with, and then that October 22nd energy of Mercury and Scorpio. This is what I know. This is what I'm an expert at. This is what I know to the core, to the T, right? Trine Saturn. Mercury trine Saturn is a serious conversation. It doesn't have to mean that you're serious, right? In tone, although it can. But this is more about, I take myself seriously. I believe in myself, and this is why, right? This is what I've done. This is what I have to offer. This is how much it costs. Venus in Scorpio, right? Money, worth, income. This is about having a serious conversation with someone about whatever it is that you have to offer or whatever someone else has to offer you, right? When it comes to relationships outside of like business negotiations or having to do with work or anything like that, this is a great aspect to have a serious, much more grounded conversation. Although with that Mercury in Scorpio, this cannot be a superficial conversation, right? This cannot be a conversation where we're just losing it. It can't be just Aries energy, even though we are still under the influence of that full moon in Aries. This has to be somewhere where we are listening intently, right? Where it's almost like a soul to soul conversation if we are genuinely trying to repair and have a connection with someone. Where Scorpio and Pisces, where those are involved, we're having a soul to soul conversation. This is how I feel about this. Please hear me out. This is how you feel about this, right? Mercury and Scorpio is about going deep, going beneath the surface, and the understanding that anything that is less than that profound, people are going to be able to see right through it. Mercury and Scorpio is about seeing right through things. Let's say that this has nothing to do with you having a conversation with anyone else about anything. This is a beautiful, beautiful energy to get honest with yourself, to organize your thoughts. There is something about this that's about, let me get serious with myself. Let me get serious with the thing that I said I was going to do and I've been putting it off. So I'm looking at my notes here. Deep, honest conversations that make you feel safe, because this is a trine, right? Mercury trine Saturn. Great energy for revising contracts and agreements. Just and the reason for that is because Mercury in Scorpio is about being very focused, right? Almost eye on the prize, understanding every little detail about what is in an agreement or a contract. One of the things that I really love about this, because we're talking about water energy, right? So we're talking about two planets that are very much about our real 3D world in signs that very much have to do with going deeply within. This is about a lot of self-acceptance, a lot of realization, soul realization, and hopefully becoming or feeling a little bit more alleviated and even healed by some of this understanding as opposed to overwhelmed. This is a trine, so the energy around it is a lot softer and it's still water energy. So be very mindful of that. One more thing I'll say about this energy is active all week long. I think that organizing yourself, getting something done that you haven't gotten done, this is a great week for that. But also for those of you who meditate, whether it's still or walking, great energy for downloads. Write it down. Write it down. Also, on October 22nd, we have the Sun in Libra square Pluto in Capricorn at 29 degrees. So one of the first things that I think is really important to mention, even though it might be obvious, but I actually find it a little fascinating, is that this is the last time that we will have a Sun in Libra square a Pluto in Capricorn. The last time in our lives, right? We have been experiencing that square every single year for the last 15, 16 years while Pluto has been in Capricorn. And, we've experienced it in various ways. They have had different manifestations for us throughout the years, but there's something really special about this one. It's the very last one. And I think that whenever we experience the last of something, the planets like to go out with a bang. The planets kind of like to, you know, really make themselves known and say, I was here. Don't you forget it. Okay. So, Sun in Libra, as I mentioned earlier, this is again great conversation, great energy for conversations around contracts or perhaps negotiations. This square between the Sun and Pluto, I think supports that even more, because even though the Sun and Pluto are at a square, and I think that collectively that's going to manifest into something. Obviously, I'm not sure what, but just take a look at the world around and take a look at the worldly climate. Look at the things that are happening. A Sun square Pluto is, the fight between two powers, and the Pluto power trying to take over, right? Trying to overpower, trying to manipulate. So think about that as you will. But I think that when it comes to a personal level, this can actually be quite empowering. This can actually be, if this is an inner working, you saying, I'm going to reach out. I'm actually going to tell someone what I have to offer. And then all of the fears come up. But what if, right? The imposter, but what if I'm really not that good? But what if I really don't have that to offer? The what ifs, all of the fears. One of the things that I want to remind you of, that I feel that this full moon in Aries energy is really trying to make clear, is that everything that is coming up, not just this full moon in Aries, actually the entire eclipse season, all of the things that are coming up, especially that are the things that are heavy and scary, they are coming up so that we finally release them. They are coming up so that we finally see the stories that are playing inside of us, and we finally choose to say, not that anymore. That story doesn't define me. That narrative doesn't define me. The outside world doesn't define me. The outside world doesn't determine my value, my worth, my power. It just doesn't. And so the Sun square Pluto, also pretty active the entire week, but especially the first 3 days of the week, is potentially coming face to face with some of those things, as we feel some kind of forward movement or being propelled forward. Now, let's say that you're having a conversation with someone else, things don't turn out exactly the way you thought. That might be the feeling of someone trying to overpower you or manipulate you. Stay serious, right? Stay calm. Mercury trine Saturn. Pay attention. If you need time, you take your time. You don't have to agree on anything, right, on the spot. So be very mindful of that, because a Sun-Pluto connection is about more radical honesty, right? I'm pretty sure I've probably shared this before on here. And if I haven't, I don't remember exactly, but I remember reading once, many, many years ago, a description about Pluto. And it's saying that Pluto is the energy in the zodiac that strips us of any self-deceit. And those words are forever ingrained in me. I cannot remember where I read it or who wrote them. I wish I could. But it was like, oh my God. And I remember this having such an impact on me, because this was a few years before Pluto transited my sun in Capricorn. I think it was about 4 years before, maybe longer. And me knowing that that energy was approaching, right? And yes, it does. Pluto strips you of all of the lies that you have told yourself to keep yourself safe in the world. Now, lies might seem like a harsh term, but when we remember the light that we are, when we remember that we too are source energy and that we are forever connected to that source energy, we remember that we are not these very belittling stories that we tell ourselves based on what the world has told us to believe about ourselves. So there's something about the Sun square Pluto that brings immense honesty. Believe people when they show you who they are, right? It's the Sun in Libra. I think there's a little bit more truth coming in relationships. If this has nothing to do with anyone else and this has to do something with you, I really invite you to, again, pay attention to what's coming up. Is it the big scary things? Is it the things that tell you that you are incapable? Remember that those things are just coming up so that you understand what's trying to fall away. Because wherever Pluto is involved, as scary as it may be or feel, Pluto is really just there to chip away at everything that hinders our light. Because there is no way that we as individuals can understand what we're truly made of unless we experience the lessons from Pluto. And they do have to be that deep. They do have to be that profound so that we learn to dig deeper within ourselves in order for that light to emerge, right? Because if we stay on the surface, we will never get to the core of that light. And that is the point of this entire season. That is the point of what's leading us into the next 2.5 years. Okay. The sun then enters Scorpio season, and we will have the entirety of Scorpio season to really deeply process everything that has taken place over the last couple of months. Wednesday, October 23rd, there's not much going on, but I do want to point this out. The moon is going to be in its home sign, transiting the sign of Cancer. And as such, it is going to create a conjunction to Mars in Cancer, and therefore also in opposition to Pluto in Capricorn. I feel that the moon's transit over Cancer between Tuesday and Wednesday, it might bring up a lot of emotion, might bring up some anger, might bring up just the processing, right? Uh, of all of the things that this full moon in Aries has brought. So just be mindful of that. Make sure that you fit in some time for meditation or walking or processing. I think Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are really great days for, a therapy session, a coaching session. Just so that there is safe, beautiful space for you to be held in whatever is coming up for you at that moment in time. Thursday, October 24th, we have Mars in Cancer create a sextile to Uranus retrograde in Taurus. So many, many years ago, this was about 10 years ago, when I was studying with my very first astrology teacher, Jim Scher, I remember him teaching us that whenever a planet, especially a personal planet, was about to go retrograde, like Mars, right? To look at the entire cycle of that planet in that sign, both direct, retrograde, and then direct again, and pay attention to the aspects in that and the connection that that planet was going to make to other planets, particularly the outer planets, because the connections during that retrograde to the outer planets were going to tell us a story about what we are meant to be working through during that retrograde period. Okay, I hope you followed me there. In that period of time, Mars is going to create 2 more sextiles to Uranus and Taurus. October 24th is the first one. The second one is January 23rd, and the third one is on April 4th. When we have a connection between Mars and Uranus, this is about going in a different direction, changing the course of direction. But because Mars is going to retrograde, there's going to be something that slows down, and Uranus is the invitation to do things differently. To me, this is about allowing each and every step of the way show you how things are meant to be done differently, particularly in the Cancer part of your chart. And so this is slow and steady growth, slow and steady growth. It's almost like moving forward, going back, moving forward, going back, right? I feel that because both Mars and Uranus are in signs like Cancer and Taurus. Cancer is a sign of the moon, is the sign of that intuitive psychic nature within us. Taurus is the sign of the body, of the senses, the things that we feel, right? I think that whatever decisions or forward movements we're meant to make, they're meant to be made very intuitively. And so what does this look like? This can look like when you're thinking about doing something or going somewhere. What does your body tell you? How does your body respond? A connection between Mars and Uranus, especially a sextile, is there's no room for doubt here, but it's a very gentle energy. A sextile is gentle. There's no room for doubt here. What does your body tell you about what you want to do intuitively? Because here's another thing. As we are asserting ourselves, advocating for ourselves, making different decisions, having courageous conversations, all of these things, and we're doing things that we never thought we would do before. The point of all of the things, as I mentioned earlier in the video, of some of these things just kind of falling away, dissipating, is so that there is room for our intuition to come through and guide us. And I think that the sextiles between Mars and Uranus between now and really April of 2025 are to sharpen that intuition that then guides the action. I really invite you to think about that, because we're moving into a time, and I don't think we're going to see it next year. I don't even think we're going to see it the following year. I think we're going to see it for years to come. Things will be much more intuitively led. You will notice people, whether they call it that or not, making decisions from a different place that isn't out of obligation or a sense of force. And that's a beautiful thing, because wherever Uranus is involved, there is an invitation to be liberated by something, right? Liberated by your own sense of self, by your own power. That's the point of going deep within, seeing your own light, and recognizing, oh, I'm in charge of me. And the way that I know that is the way that my body responds, either expands or contracts, to the decisions that I'm making and the people that I allow in my life. The weekend of the 25th through the 27th, there aren't any major aspects other than all of the aspects that I've mentioned, the energy that is still moving through, even through the weekend. But the moon will transit the sign of Virgo, both Saturday and Sunday, October 26th and 27th, right? So a moon in Virgo calls for things like perhaps deep cleaning your home, organization, meal planning, organization in food. Let's say that you are able to make a doctor's appointment on Saturday, for instance. It's a great day with the moon in Virgo, right? To get checked, to have a really introspective look as to what's happening inside, or any conversations, any information that may come around that. So the moon in Virgo is taking care of the details that we either put off or tend to overlook. It has been so much fun really being with you all on this eclipse season journey. To those who purchased the eclipse guide, thank you all so much again for your messages and your feedback. I am offering a 2025 year ahead reading. You'll see the details below. And so essentially it's me and you. We go over your chart. How are the aspects and alignments and the transits of 2025 going to affect your chart? And how do they set you up for 2025 and beyond? I really invite you to join me in that space. It is more of a reduced rate for more time than my usual reading, so I invite you to take advantage of that. As always, may this be of service. So much love to you, and I will talk to you next week.